Thank you, Phil. Good morning, and thank you all for joining me here today. It is with a heavy heart that I must announce that the United States is cutting $50 million, that's 1.4 billion Kwacha, in annual aid to Zambia provided for medications and medical supplies. For more than 1 year, the government of the United States has requested tangible action from the government of Zambia to respond to the countrywide systematic theft of these products provided by the United States. In the face of minimal action, responsive action by the government of Zambia, the United States is taking necessary steps to safeguard and ensure the accountability of U.S. American taxpayer funds. For more than 60 years, the United States and Zambia have shared a strong friendship. Because of our commitment to Zambia and the Zambian people, in recent years, the United States has invested more than $600 million a year. That's nearly 17 billion Kwacha annually toward our shared goals of economic development and improved health and public well-being. Roughly 1 in every 3 Kwacha spent on public health in Zambia comes as grant assistance from the American people. As part of this, in recent years, the United States has provided approximately $128 million annually. That's about 3.5 billion Kwacha every year to buy medications to treat HIV, malaria, and tuberculosis, as well as to provide the technical and operational support for Zambia's national health supply chain. These medications and supplies are intended to be provided for free to the Zambian patients in need. Now today, millions of Zambians are living longer, healthier lives because of this assistance, which comes again in the form of grants, not loans, provided by the American taxpayer. We're incredibly proud to have partnered with Zambia to reverse the AIDS epidemic and to reach epidemic control today. Due to joint efforts by the United States and Zambia, 98% of Zambians living with HIV know their status. 99% of Zambians who know they are HIV positive are now on treatment. And 98% of HIV positive Zambians on treatment are virally suppressed, meaning they cannot transmit the virus. Beyond our support related to HIV, over the past 10 years, our joint efforts have helped reduce deaths from malaria and tuberculosis by more than 75%. Our investments in Zambia are intended to benefit the Zambian people. U.S. donated medical supplies and medicines, which include antiretrovirals or ARVs, but also tuberculosis and anti-malarial drugs and others, are made available to Zambians for free. Today, 1 in every 9 Zambians is living with HIV, but the majority of those 1.3 million Zambians is virally suppressed. They can't transmit the virus because of ARVs provided by the United States and intended for free distribution. However, I am disappointed to share publicly today that since 2021, we've uncovered systematic theft of life-saving medicines and other products that were intended for free for the Zambian public, including ARVs and anti-tuberculosis, anti-malaria treatments. Now, as soon as we discovered this countrywide theft in late 2021, we immediately informed the Zambian government of our findings, and we initiated an across the country on-the-ground assessment of private pharmacies to understand the extent of the issue. From 2021 through late 2023, our buyers visited more than 2,000 pharmacies in every province and district of this country that sell the same types of products that the United States provides for free to Zambia's healthcare system. Shockingly, across these visits, 95% of the pharmacies that were selling the kinds of products that the United States provides were also selling stolen goods. Of those pharmacies selling stolen goods, 45% were selling stolen products that the United States had provided to Zambia for free for Zambians in need. Let me repeat that. In all 10 provinces, nearly half of the pharmacies that were selling the types of products that the United States provides for free for the Zambian people were selling stolen medications and medical supplies donated by the United States government. Now, the rest of the pharmacies that were selling stolen products were still selling stolen medicines and supplies from stocks that were purchased by the Zambian government, by the Global Fund, by other donor partners. On April 3rd of last year, 2024, I brought this alarming information to the attention of senior Zambian government leaders. In attendance at the meeting on that day were high-level officials from multiple ministries, from multiple law enforcement agencies and the executive. I asked them to take meaningful action on two fronts. First, I asked for action to mitigate further theft of U.S. provided goods. And second, I asked to enforce high-level accountability for those who are involved in stealing these life-saving medicines from the Zambian people. Over the next 13 months, through more than 33 senior meetings with permanent secretary level or higher Zambian officials by U.S. Embassy staff, senior officials from Washington, and me, we reiterated our requests to the Zambian government for action to stop the further theft and to bring the culprits to justice. We even offered U.S. government experts in supply chain management and in law enforcement to partner with Zambian counterparts to support the requested efforts. I regret that to date, the government's actions have fallen drastically short of demonstrating a commitment to safeguarding U.S. assistance and the lives that we aim to save with it. Instead of investigating supply sources or pursuing the masterminds behind the theft of medicines, law enforcement operations have focused more often than not on low-level actors and have led to the arrest of only a few mid-level officials. And more than 6 months into a forensic audit of the mismanagement of the Zambia Medicines and Medical Supplies Agency, ZAMSA, there is still no public report, nor has the United States received a private report. Since October, I've alerted senior government officials of my obligation to safeguard American taxpayers' resources in the face of the gross theft and mismanagement. I have stressed repeatedly that the accountable safeguarding of American taxpayer funds will require the United States to significantly reduce our contribution of medicines and medical supplies if meaningful action is not taken to hold high-level culprits responsible and to stop that theft. I have messaged that consistently at very senior levels since October. After more than 1 year of little tangible action by Zambian authorities to address this systematic theft of U.S. provided health support, the United States can no longer justify to the American taxpayer continuing to provide massive levels of assistance when the Zambian government doesn't take the necessary measures to protect this American investment. And as a result, and truly with a very heavy heart, the United States government has made this very difficult decision to cut $50 million of our annual support for critically needed medications and medical supplies in Zambia. Again, that's 1.4 billion kwacha of assistance that is being lost. The exact parameters of the reduction are not yet finalized, and my embassy team and I remain available to engage with the government to discuss how we do this. This is not a decision that we have taken lightly. And I've recommended to Washington that we do continue to procure and deliver these life-saving medicines and medical supplies to Zambia through the end of this year, to provide time to the government to develop a transition plan, to budget, to place procurements, to avoid stockouts of these medications. After that point, we will offer our technical logistics assistance to support humanitarian activities, to prevent drug resistance and disease transmission. But we will cut $50 million a year of our annual contributions to providing malaria, HIV, and tuberculosis medicines. Now, as many of you may know, the Trump administration is in the process of finalizing a broader review of our foreign assistance funding around the world, including here in Zambia. That review is still underway. But I want to stress that this $50 million reduction in our medicines and medical supply budget in Zambia is wholly separate from that. This reduction is exclusively because of the lack of action by the Zambian government to respond to the countrywide systematic theft of American-donated medications and medical supplies, despite more than a year of intense requests and offers of support to realize those objectives. Moving forward, the United States does remain committed to supporting Zambia and the Zambian people to realize the massive potential that this great country possesses. Zambia's prosperous economic future and a healthy population that's going to drive that future is absolutely in our shared interest between Americans and Zambians. The United States remains deeply interested in contributing to that future. But we are no longer willing to underwrite the personal enrichment of fraudsters or the corrupt when patients go without or have to buy life-saving medications that we've provided for them for free, and the Zambian government doesn't take action to enforce meaningful accountability or introduce systematic reforms to ensure that those resources that belong to the people actually reach them. I thank you for joining me here today, and I'm happy to take any questions you may have.
Thank you, Ambassador Gonzalez. With that, I'd like to welcome any questions from the media. Raise your hand if you have a question. Please state your name and the media outlet you are from. I want to stress that for today, we want to keep this focused on the topic we're addressing, U.S. assistance to the health sector. So please, questions on that topic. But with that, we very much welcome any questions that you have. Yes, please.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Right, I'm just trying to put myself together because this is really shocking. My name is Rachel from TV, and my question is going to you, your ambassador. Assuming the government begins to work on, enforcing or law enforcement action against those that are, pilfering this medicine, is there any chance that the U.S. government will reconsider this decision?
Thank you, Rachel. I appreciate that question on whether, if there were law enforcement action going forward by the government, if the U.S. would reconsider this action. At this point, after 3 years of raising it and 1 year of intensive engagement and requests, we've made this decision. I cannot commit to what may happen in the future. I sincerely hope, however, that the Zambian authorities do take meaningful action, both on accountability as well as on mitigation, because the Zambian people need it. more importantly, the Zambian people deserve it. These are resources provided for them. And it's not just resources from the United States, it's government resources, other donor resources. So I sincerely hope the government does take action, and how the United States may respond to that remains to be seen. Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Yes, please.
Good morning, Ambassador. My name is Nelson Zulu from Radio Phoenix. I would like to find out if, from your assessment, you've seen potential that these mitigation as well as accountability measures could be put by the Zambian administration or the Zambian government. Thank you.
Nelson, if I understand you correctly, does the Zambian government have the ability or potential to take accountable action? I believe they do. I haven't said that no action has taken place. Where we have seen meaningful action, limited, but has been from the Drug Enforcement Commission. And I salute Director General Banda for what he has been able to do. I think much, much more can be done. That will require resources and prioritization of funding to do that. There has been months and months and months of engagement and conversation and discussion about how to reform the supply chain process, reforms to ZAMSA. It's time to move those discussions to tangible action. Again, that will take both resources as well as the political will and prioritization to make those reforms happen, and to happen in a sustainable way. So I have no doubt that the Zambian government has the skills and the abilities and, frankly, if they want, the resources to make this happen. And I would reiterate that the United States has, until now, and will continue to offer technical expert advice to support Zambian authorities, be they law enforcement or supply chain, in order to address the things that we are talking about. In that meeting, that very senior packed meeting that we held with government on April 3rd of last year, 13 months ago, I opened it by saying, we have a problem. Not you have we have a problem, and we are committed to work with the Zambian authorities to resolve it, to address those two priorities of mitigation and accountability. But we're not doing it alone. Hope that answers your question, Nelson.
Yes, please.
My name is George Zulu from the Mass Newspapers. I've got one question for you, Your Excellency. You mentioned typically about the thieving of our medical supplies from the American government. I just want to find out how deep rooted is this theft of our medication and medical supplies that the American government is giving to Zambia. And furthermore, have you had a chat with the Republican president about this theft, especially that all the security wings, you talk about DEC, ACC, Zambia Police, OP, they're in the office of the president. I thank you.
Thank you, George. Two questions. One, how deep does this go? And second, have I discussed with the Republican president? I will say in terms of the scope of the theft, we do know that it has been going on for multiple years. We do know that it is happening in every province, virtually every district around the country. In terms of the depth, I would prefer to wait for the government to release the forensic audit, or at least broad parameters found from the forensic audit. I recognize that the public release of something like that is probably unlikely in the near term, because ideally, the content found from that forensic audit will be used to lead credible investigations. But the dynamics that we're seeing in terms of the scope, the frequency, the patterns of the theft leave me with zero doubt that this is an organized criminal endeavor that includes fairly senior people. I'm not saying senior government people per se, but senior people who have the wherewithal, the means to pull off a multi-year, full of country organized criminal endeavor. In terms of individual names with whom I have engaged or others have engaged in government, I would prefer to keep those among government. You may want to pose that question to government authorities if they're willing to release. I have no objection should they. But again, 33 at least senior meetings by me, people from Washington, my team, with permanent secretary level and more senior officials across all relevant agencies and elements of the Zambian government over 13 years.
Good morning, Ambassador. My name is Mania from News Diggers. You've indicated that over a year ago you met government officials over a high-level meeting that you had with them. I wanted to find out what was the immediate response that government gave following the concerns that you raised. Was there any efforts that government indicated that it was putting in place to bring a stop to the results or investigations that was conducted? What was government's response towards the meeting that you held over a year ago?
Yeah, thank you. So what was the government's response to that high-level meeting? We heard all the right things. We heard shock, disappointment, commitment. We heard a directive to law enforcement to take immediate action. I used that meeting to stress not taking immediate overnight action, because it was clear that this was a bigger, more organized endeavor that would require a bigger organized response, an investigation. I stressed, I pleaded with government, don't just go into a random shipping container that is selling commodities, find that they're selling something that is stolen, and arrest the 15-year-old kid behind the counter. Because I guarantee you that kid didn't buy the medication, maybe doesn't even know where it came from. So use this like a reasonable, organized law enforcement investigation to find where are stolen medicines being sold from? Who owns those pharmacies? Call them in. Where are they buying from? How did the person selling obtain the medications? I'm not a law enforcement officer. I do have U.S. federal law enforcement officers based here in my embassy who I pleaded with government authorities. Please take advantage of them to help you design such an effort to respond. A day and a half later, I think it was a Friday, so around April 5th or so of last year, we saw a great headline. Zambia police go in and they've arrested, I think it was 16 people for selling stolen medicines. So I heard all the right things. I saw a great headline that suggested action was being taken. Over the next month and a half or so, there were two more similar headlines. I think one up in Copperbelt and one in Southern, with the same pattern. The 15-year-old kids behind the counter were arrested. Easy, small fish were picked up. And I have not seen evidence of organized law enforcement response to the organized criminal endeavor since late June of last year. Until January of this year, when we did see, as I said, DEC did make a couple of arrests. Very eager to see what comes of that. Now we do see, I think in Daily Nation today, in a couple of the papers over the weekend, someone working in a clinic was found with 22,000 kwacha worth of medications. Great. I mean, that needs to be part of the solution. But if this is happening in an organized way across the entirety of the country, it's going to be responded to in an organized way across the entirety of the country, not by picking up small fish. So I heard all the right things. I've yet to see the tangible action that will actually stop this and ensure that the Zambian people get the commodities that your government is buying for them, that your friends around the world are providing for free. Sorry, Munya, I went well beyond the scope of your question. But
I have a follow-up question.
Please.
Yeah, but why do you think there's this resistance to address the issue? You've mentioned that you put in frantic efforts to engage government, but there's this resistance. Do you think that you've attributed it to having maybe senior people involved in this organized syndicate? Why do you think there's this resistance? Do you think the senior people are actually benefiting directly? That's why there's this resistance to address the issue?
let me be clear. I have no indication or reason to believe that senior government officials are or are not involved in this. Hopefully, the forensic audit would reveal that, or at least indications of that. Why the resistance? That's really a question for the Zambian government.